Hi everyone, welcome to today's fireside chat, unlocking the benefits of a HRIS digital review. My name's Will, I'm the account executive here at SilverCloud. I work with our clients across our end-to-end HRIS transformation services. I'm joined today by my colleague Emma Hall, who's an experienced HRIS consultant and works to deliver the projects and services that we provide. And I'm also joined by my colleague Ben Myhill, our Chief Sales Officer, who again works with our clients. Today, we'll be talking about what is a digital review, the benefits of a digital review, and some success stories that we've had with previous clients.
So when we talk about what a digital review is to our clients, it can actually depend on what their outcome is and what they're looking to achieve from it. But broadly speaking, really, it's quite a broad, holistic review, and it might encompass their people, their culture, their company processes, and we will also do a lot of detailed discovery around what their people initiatives and potentially company strategies are going forward. And then what we do is, as part of that digital review, we align all those things that are important to a business back to the people technology that they have currently. And we need to make sure that the technology that they have in place to see if it's fit for purpose for those key criteria. So out of the back of that digital review will be a full assessment of what we've learned about the organization, about what we know about their current people technology stack, and we'll give them gap analysis and recommendations to hopefully point them in the right direction as to where they need to go so that that system or that stack of systems can best support those policies and initiatives.
And just to add to that, we at SilverCloud, we start with information gathering, and that's usually with subject matter experts. And it's a series of discovery workshops where we look at current processes, ways of working, pain points, areas for improvements. And the discussions kind of with the key departments include HR, payroll, finance, IT, senior leadership team, sometimes even managers, employees, or HRBPs, anyone really that has their kind of hand on the process. We tend to try and focus as well on quite a holistic view. So even if the digital review might only be for their payroll system or for their HR or HR and payroll, we still kind of factor in any other systems that have touch points to those processes. Reviewing those main frustrations, missing functionality, if there's any global capability, scalability with the solutions, as well as kind of any integration that needs to be considered. And we review current provider. So that's kind of the current state analysis. So from all those findings, we identify any risks or issues, key areas for improvements. We'll review high-level requirements against the current systems, functionality and capability, and do an analysis on that as well. We then kind of look at the future state analysis. So moving from current to future, the art of the possible, kind of putting our expertise into practice. You know, what have we seen in the market? What best HR practices do we know within the industry, and applying that to the future state analysis, and obviously where the clients want to take their processes, how the systems and processes can also support with the wider business strategy. And then we form the gap analysis from that. So reviewing the current state against the future state, or the ideal future state, and highlighting any gaps in functionality processes. And that could be also identifying bridging those gaps as well. So it could be developing what we call as quick wins with the current solution, but then also looking at reviewing the market of how that can be improved with potentially a new system or new ways of working. And then finally, we present the recommendations. So we produce the report and kind of present high level, just what we would recommend from the digital review. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah, and I think in its simplest form, the outcome and the required or hoped outcome of a digital review is often different with clients. But fundamentally, a digital review is when a client is not getting the most out of their people systems. And it's often that first step into, as you say, a holistic overview into their people, processes and systems to essentially gain expert insight into why that is. And often clients won't have that insight. And there's an array of different reasons or areas of the business that will need to be looked at to determine that.
Yeah, and I think I'm quite a technical person, so I know I've focused a lot on systems when I've been describing that process, but actually just with something you've mentioned, Will, in discovery, we do look at engagement, training, how that has also impacted processes, how the organisation uses the solutions. You know, it could be that actually the last time that the team had training was 2 or 3 years ago. The solutions then, you know, developed since, no configurations being done. So we also identify other aspects, not just kind of solely based on system functionality, but engagement from the organisation and how they use the solutions.
I think the benefit of sometimes bringing an external consultancy like us in is that just looking at those discovery sessions is that you can be too close to your own business internally. You can know your own business too well, and you can't often see the woods from the trees. So the benefit of bringing someone like us in is that we don't necessarily know your business, but we really know what, you know, HR technology best practice is and transformational change. We know that really well. And sometimes it's a really good cathartic experience for both parties to actually sit down and really learn the business, because that's where often key stakeholders will really think about where the real pains are. They'll think about the things that are not going very well, the efficiencies that are not being managed accordingly. But you have to go through that process to get the best out of people. Yeah. I think that's where we can come in. We can come in with a blank page. We just want to learn about what their business is, what their aims are, what their strategies are, but really what's holding them back. But we need that engagement from those stakeholders. That's really key. And in turn, we can then give them the insights that we know, necessarily what they won't know about the market or the technology space.
Yeah, and we use that saying all the time, you don't know what you don't know. And it's really interesting when we do discovery and it, you know, questioning kind of why do you do it that way, or why is a process a certain way? And it gets the teams thinking, well, actually, it's just something we've always done and it's a legacy thing. And yeah, the digital review, the purpose is to build that business case, isn't it? To get the buy-in from the powers that be, and to look at, yeah, better ways of working.
We may be that problematic child that just says why until we get to an answer, but sometimes that's a good process to go through.
Yeah. So the 4 key elements of a digital review is to look at the current state analysis. So high level, look at where you're at currently, then look at your future state and do an analysis on that of where you want to be. You can then do a gap analysis between the two. So where you're at currently, where you want to be in the future, and how you can bridge those gaps. And that could be through quick wins, short-term solutions.
So the common signs that an organisation might need a digital review, there's quite a few. I think, first of all, an organisation has to know that they've got a problem before they come to us. They know that they probably need some help and some recommendations. So that's our starting point. In terms of why, or the common signs, it could be one or all 5 of the following things, really. But some of the common elements are, for whatever reason, they've got disparate systems, that they're not integrated, so they're not sharing the right information across maybe different elements such as HR, time capturing, payroll, and different talent elements, as well as not sharing information. That tends to mean that stakeholders are working, or users are working, very siloed in those systems. So again, there's not that sort of single process as well as one source of truth. One of the reasons for that is that they may have implemented a solution or a set of solutions that 3 years ago was fit for purpose, but they've grown or they've gone through acquisitions or organizational change. So therefore, they're no longer fit for purpose. Another frustration of organizations that grow by acquisition is that they inherit systems and therefore they'll have a lot of duplication and siloed working. So that's always a very big, significant criteria. Another one as well is that people leave businesses and you may have a team that implemented and supported one system and they put their stamp on it, and another team come into the business and it's not the way that they see the business going and it's not the right solution to support that business. So therefore they are potentially looking for either greater efficiencies from that system or improvements or potentially to change. I would say the other key area as well is that clients, instead of wanting to get the best use out of what they've got, they know that they need to change, but a digital review from us is often the first step to start getting buy-in for that internal business case. We have clients that come to us and say, we know we've got to change. We've done a review. We know what's not working. We know the systems are no longer aligned to the business and it's not supporting our staff or our managers, and it's not giving us the efficiencies or the information that we require. They've kind of done all that, but they kind of need someone else to do it with them to really help strengthen that business case for change, which we know in this current landscape, getting budgets is harder. So often a digital review is a really good tool to help them progress that.
I think often sometimes they will have a clear idea of why they want the digital review, but often they won't. And it may be as simple as you mentioned, Ben. They know they have a problem. Their systems, their processes aren't working as they know they should, but they then essentially get a bit stuck with the next step. And there's a lot of options out there, whether it's assessing the market, which is obviously a very busy marketplace and competitive marketplace, improving what they have. It could be merging systems. And these are big decisions that are expensive, time consuming, and often involve a lot of input from the wider business.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, you kind of find yourself then inheriting old processes that have been legacy with the system, especially on acquisitions and mergers, and a lot of manual processes tend to creep in as well. Nobody really trusts what system is the true source of data. So then employees kind of lack engagement as well, or your subject matter experts distrust the systems that are in place. So I think that all kind of ravels into one. We need a digital review. We need to identify where the issues are, because they might know they've got issues, but not necessarily where they're coming from, whether it's processes or systems or just the way the organization works since mergers have happened or acquisitions.
I think it also comes back to that, what we said earlier, which clients will say to us, there's a lot of stuff we know, but there's a lot of stuff we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And we need someone else to come in and really sort of, nurture those kind of solutions out for us and give us that steer. And I think that's where that's where a benefit of a digital review could be, is just try and offer new perspectives, new ideas. One of the things that we are able to do, which some organizations can't because their very nature is they're quite siloed in their own business, is that we know what's worked for other similar organizations and what hasn't, and where the red flags are and the pitfalls, and where the quick wins are. And I think that bringing all that knowledge in as well really helps to just provide those kind of that guidance and that roadmap for that client, whether that's a roadmap to change, which could be their overall desire, or whether it's a roadmap to improve what they have, whether that's for the short term or the long term. Again, there's some crossroads there, and a digital review can really shape that for them.
Yeah, so if you ignore the signs and don't kind of invest time and money into a digital review, you'll find that inefficiencies will creep in. You'll obviously be at a huge risk with compliance. You'll end up with disengaged employees, managers, and even your kind of specialists in HR and payroll, IT, or all of your main functions. Overtime will creep in, so it actually could cost you more money as well. And obviously overwork staff. Manual processes will creep back in because the system will start to fail you. So you'll have to put in workarounds, which often we hear we now do that on a spreadsheet, or again, touch upon the, not one true source of data or reliable data or faith in the data. That creeps manual processes in because you'll double check a lot of things using Excel. The reporting aspect becomes very fragmented, and that can be because you've got 2 or 3 different systems that are trying to fit the needs of the organization, because one sole system isn't doing that for you. And then you're reporting from numerous different systems and stringing together a lot of data to get the report that you actually want. And then HR teams, we see this a lot. They spend more time either doing the manual processes or fixing the issues rather than doing their added value tasks to the organisation and doing the job that they're hired to do.
I think on your point, our payroll system is unique in the sense that it touches every single employee in the business. Everyone has a log on to the HR portal, everyone's getting a payroll system, time and attendance is the same. And I think it actually can start to have a domino effect that some of those challenges you've mentioned will impact the business itself, the functionality of the business, but then also the other systems that it will no doubt integrate with across your tech stack, across other parts of the business as well. So it really can have a fundamental impact. For example, I recently spoke to a client who is planning to double in size in the next 2 years via acquisitions, also organic growth. And they've said that they've got such a poor process in place at the moment with their tech stack that they're actually concerned it's going to halt that growth because they just don't have the structure in place to do that.
Yeah, and that's a good point actually, Will, because it also then creates bottlenecks to processes as well. So it could be that part of the process works really well, but another aspect of the process doesn't, and that causes a massive big bottleneck in the overall process.
I think also just on those points, which is really interesting, is this is a new system like this requires a lot of effort, time, and investment, obviously, and it's always easy to be a bit complacent and kick the can down the road, so to speak. And it's a bit like the analogy of a car. If you've got a car that really is not really fit for purpose, but you keep spending money on it because it's easier than buying a new car, until such a point the car breaks down on the M25 at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're really stranded. That's normally what forces change. And I have to say, we did see a lot of that during COVID. I'm not wishing to bring COVID up again, but it was amazing, just those organizations that had systems where they could change those systems quickly to manage, different furlough payments. They did have systems in place that allowed them to their employees to still engage with businesses and work from home and still do online learning and have all those resources available to them, versus the organizations that were just getting by, and then suddenly in a very different world, which none of us want to go through again, but you never know what's around the corner, they realized that their systems were just not fit for that kind of criterion. There was all stories about people having to go into the office unnecessarily just to run payroll, and there was lots of manual calculations and all that kind of stuff. So it's just interesting that during COVID, it's amazing how many projects got greenlit by CFOs that would normally have taken maybe 12 months, because suddenly it brought out the real need that this system is not fit for purpose. And there was a massive drive, and we were very busy as a result of suddenly transformation being really key. And how can we do it as quickly as possible? Because they didn't really have any answers for the situation that they were in. So it's just that sort of moral story that if it's not good enough for the business and it's starting to creak at the seams, you're probably worth trying to nip it in the bud as quickly as possible. Really, to what Will said as well, there is that you don't want to ever get to the point where you go, if we don't do this, there's going to be a really, really difficult or effect of the business that we've got to overcome. why do clients decide to take that digital review from us? We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think they often find themselves at a crossroads where they're not sure. They know that something's wrong, and they know that the system isn't giving them efficiencies, and they may have done some due diligence, or it just might be an awareness because the organization is changing, and they've got a decision to make. They either get best use out of what they have, or they go to market. And that's quite a big decision. And I think that's often why a lot of clients come to us, is to help them make that informed decision. We're never going to bully them down any route, but I think we can give them that clarity, that perspective, and those insights and recommendations for them to actually take a step back and go, if we go left and get the most out, try and get the most out of our system, it might not be fit for purpose. We're throwing good money out of bad, and that's being proven, versus going right, taking the plaster off and really trying to move forward with change. I think that's one of the key things. What would you feel, Will?
Yeah, one thing I particularly like about the digital reviews in my time at Silver Cloud is I feel like the outcome is always different. And I think Emma can attest to this. And I think the use cases often are different. Broadly speaking, you can split it into two categories of, they all know there's something wrong with their people systems, but some have an understanding of the outcome they want and others don't. So I think often the common use cases are, we are just not getting the most. There's manual processes, there's lack of reporting, there's poor integrations, disparate systems, all the things we hear very commonly, but we just don't know where the issues specifically lie and how to resolve those. So we just need an expert to come in, give us that holistic overview. I think others have quite a clear use case for a digital review and an outcome that they're quite clear on from the start. So we've had clients come to us for a digital review and say, we absolutely want to go to selection, but we want to use the digital review as that really great foundation for what will ultimately be our business case. And then conversely, others have come to us and said, actually, we're not going to selection. We've got 3 years left on our contract, but the use for this digital review is, do we bring external systems in-house and add that to the tech stack with this one provider, or can we improve the functionality? We touched upon, for example, often I think when new HR payroll leaders come into a business, they're naturally reviewing their tech stack. There may or may not be people in the business that were involved in implementing that, and they don't know what they don't know. If they've not worked with that system before, they may be a very experienced HR payroll professional, but they will still need support with that specific technology.
And just to add to that, like, everyone knows technology is advancing so quickly that really you should be reviewing your systems like every 3 to 5 years. It's like mortgage rates change all of the time, systems change all the time. You should be reviewing, even if you don't feel like there's a massive strain or a massive issue on the business. How do you know you are using your staff to the best of their abilities if you're not giving them the right tools? And we've seen AI creep into the market. The HR tech space, the payroll tech space has changed massively to adapt to that. So you should be reviewing your systems, even if you don't massively think there is a critical issue or critical issues. You should still be reviewing and doing a digital review to see, is there better ways of working?
Yeah, there's always a saying that if you've got a good system in place, you actually never stop implementing, because if the right system is in place and it's giving you value now, as you say, Emma, the market changes. You'll always hope that there's new innovations to that system, but you as a business might be changing or growing or diversifying, so your demands are greater. And if you can continuously optimize what you've got to keep giving you value, then you've got the right system, but you might still be constantly implementing. But as you say, it's when you realize that you've kind of hit a brick wall and you are going ahead of what that system now can provide, that's a clear sign that you need to reevaluate.
And I think just hearing it from an unbiased third party as well. So we've touched upon the fact that organizations know that they've got issues, they know that they've got problems with the processes, with their system, but sometimes you just need somebody else to say it, to document it, to build that business case. When you're going on a night out, you might have a new outfit, it looks good, or you wouldn't have bought it, but actually you sometimes just need someone else to reassure you that what you're thinking is what you're thinking. And a lot of the times we do, with the digital review, cover a lot of areas that the client already knows, but it's just detailing it from an unbiased point of view.
Typically, there's two main scenarios that people will conduct a review of their people systems. Firstly is a large change to the business, so a merger or acquisitions, a change in the leadership team, or a significant change in the relationship or service they're receiving from their existing provider. Best practice, if that's not the case, is typically in line with the renewal with your existing system, is a good opportunity to conduct a more holistic deep dive review, and that typically is every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think there's many factors that leaders can do to get their steerco or senior stakeholders involved. Now, obviously, one way is to bring someone like us in to really bring out what the key problems are, but that's not the whole answer. And part of the services that we provide is really to bring those senior stakeholders in there as well. Because I think, why do people want to review their people technology? Normally it's, they haven't got efficiency. They may have had some issues around compliance that could have been driven by the system. They may not have the right information at the right time to make good decisions, all that kind of stuff. But I think if you can actually tie that into problems that the CFO may know about, so he or she may not be getting the right information financially, or maybe seeing some real efficiency gaps, then you bringing him or her into that conversation early as one of their pain points that is a shared pain point, I think is really key. Someone like the head of HR or HR director may be really struggling to provide board packs to the steer company, without having their team working at weekends to do it manually. That's a real pain point, because A, it's a waste of everyone's time, and B, it's not leading to happy employees. So again, really driving that mentality. A chief operating officer may be really, really worried about the way that time is being captured, or shifts are being managed, or again, lack of compliance in knowledge or processes. And again, really bringing that person in so that they are part of this evaluation, and that they can hear from us or anyone else of the potential solutions that can be brought forward to actually make their lives or their pain points easier. So I think really the key thing is there's no point going or doing all this research and then presenting it to a steerco blind. If we can bring those people in early to those conversations and get them contributing, then you've got early buy-in and they've got early visibility of potential solutions.
I think a strong buy-in I've seen for a digital review is that it is essentially that first step into a digital transformation, like we've discussed today. So the potential time, effort, and cost of, say, implementing a whole new system, or completely reconfiguring or optimizing an existing one, which may not be the right decision for the business, compared to the effort of that initial digital review, which may provide valuable insights that haven't been considered. It's essentially an insurance policy to negate the risk of making the wrong decision, and potentially a 12-month expensive project to do so.
So how a digital review has helped transform an organisation, I would say the biggest thing that comes to the front of my mind is, we call it reducing the noise or reducing the chaos. And it's when we look at an organisation that has 5, 6 or 7 different systems or solutions, all for different reasons and different purposes, but we look at how the processes that are being used within the organisation, why there are a number of different solutions and why not just 1 or 2, why there is, as an example, a separate HR to a payroll system, and why not, all in one. So we question all of that. And it comes into the chaos of fragmented data which makes reporting very difficult. It makes understanding what is your true source of data. It becomes unreliable when you've got a number of different systems. It becomes admin heavy because you are updating 6 or 7 systems rather than 1 or 2. And through a digital review, you identify those gaps, recommend a streamlined approach, so reducing the noise and ultimately improving data accuracy and employees' experience, because when it cascades down the organisation, it does reach the employees, and that is who you want to keep happy. With multiple systems, an employee might have to log into one system to submit an overtime claim, but then another system to view their payslip or to submit a holiday. So it's just reducing the noise for the organisation, for the subject matter experts, but also equally for the employee experience as well. And just to add, with reducing the noise, we would hope that it might save a bit of money for the organisation as well, because you're not then managing 6 or 7 different vendors, 6 or 7 different contracts or SLAs, and you're not paying 6 or 7 different third parties. So we would hope that would help with return on investment as well. Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm a creature of habit myself, although I do like change when it's for the better, for an improvement. But in terms of overcoming that, internal resistance to change, it's certainly involving all of the key stakeholders from the very, very outset and getting their engagement. So feeling like they are heard, feeling like their opinion is valued and their feedback is valued. That often does help with engagement and overcoming kind of that change. If you're making key decisions as well, getting them involved in those key decisions, I think has a really positive outcome for change.
I think that early engagement you mentioned, involving stakeholders, and I think approaching it in the right way. So we always talk about taking a consultative approach, and we're doing it with you, not to you, and all of those sort of good cliches. But I think it does stand true that we want to bring them along on that journey, and ultimately we're looking for ways to improve their working environment, as opposed to making huge changes, not bringing them along, not explaining the rationale. So I think, yeah, that early buy-in.
Yeah, clear communication, explaining the rationale, why we're doing it, what the impact will have, and the outcome.
Yeah, in terms of advice for those clients that are considering engaging a digital review, I think one of the key ones, we've already said it previously, but bring your stakeholders with you. That's key. Sometimes change or resistance to change can be seen because it's seen as a threat, and it really shouldn't be. This should be something that everyone can be involved in and can benefit from. And as you said, I think at the very start, Will, this is not a system that affects 4 users in the organization. It's a system that affects and benefits everyone in the business. So it's really a consensus a process. But aside from that, I think it's really, you've got to start with a clear understanding of what you're wanting to achieve from this review. And we've touched on reasons, whether that's compliance or operational efficiency or supporting employees with a better experience. They could be all the key things, but it's really looking at where those goals are, where those pains are at the moment, and again, really digging into how they affect those people, both at a high level and at a sort of operational level as well, and just really having clarity on that. That will really help them guide through the process. If they can start from the 5 key things that are really holding the business back in terms of people initiatives or people efficiency or even bottom line efficiency, starting with those 5 key things and then understanding how a system could, whilst it might not be a magic bullet and make all those problems disappear, can really start to benefit. And I think the last thing I would say is whatever you do, you're not going to do it all in phase 1. So it's having an understanding of what's going to really positively impact the business with a new system for phase 1, if it is indeed a new system, and where can we keep continuing to optimize as a phase 2 or 3, not trying to do everything in the first 12 months, but really understanding that this is a long-term or a longer-term improvement.
think we touched upon it earlier, and it is around that stakeholder engagement. So I think putting it out to your key stakeholders in the business and having a clear message as to why you're interested in conducting this piece of work. You're not going to have all of the answers, hence why you're interested in this type of service. But I think the second piece is having that clear out. What does a successful project look like for you at the end?
I think to that, Will, as well, you've always got to go back to users. Anyone in the business will always say, what's in it for me? How's it going to make my life easier or my team's easier? So I think, leaders always have to go back to the what's in it for me. And if you can answer those questions for people, then again, you're going to bring your team along a lot quicker and get a lot more clarity and evaluation in terms of exactly what's wrong.
And probably just to add to that, I am a perfectionist, so this is hard to say, but it's about the progress, not perfection. So small baby steps can lead to significant improvements over time.
Emma, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. And for everyone listening, thank you very much. I hope you found it insightful. If you'd like to learn more about digital reviews, the service, best practices, there's resources, including an array of case studies available on our website. And if you'd like to discuss further with SilverCloud, please feel free to reach out to us directly. Thank you.